The Scrum framework has been designed as a path to organizational agility. It's not just about single teams. My experience shows that applying the whole Scrum framework actually has a rapid positive effect on organizational agility. So what do we mean by organizational agility? In short, we mean the ability of an organization, a business, corporation, government entity to rapidly adapt in volatile, uncertain, complex, or ambiguous environments. Organizational agility is actually a key to long-term organizational success. Scrum can help with that. Think of Scrum as a catalyst. Scrum itself is not the destination. We don't do Scrum because Scrum itself is inherently good. Scrum is specifically designed for organizations that have a lot of bureaucracy, that are struggling with time to market or the cost to deliver improvements to products, and to catalyze change towards real agility. This idea of being a catalyst means that actually it may not stick around in the organization. It gets dropped in, it overlays everything else that's happening in the organization, creates openness, encourages people to courage, designs in structures for focus. Over time, the organization will change to become more agile. Think of it like an analogy to how small startups behave. In a small startup, you have frequent and rapid checkpoints through time. They could be very brief status meetings, they could be planning checkpoints. All that Scrum does is take that idea of frequency and formalize it in the concept of a sprint. So we make the checkpoints regular, daily. We make the planning regular. We make the feedback process regular, every month or more frequent. All we're doing is taking that startup behavior, just putting a little bit of structure on it, making it regular. Same thing with how the team works. In a startup, you have founders, you might have a coach, you have sweat equity holders, your employees who are getting paid in part with either options or actual shares. Everyone is totally focused and committed because of their skin in the game. Likewise, a Scrum team is designed to try and mimic that structure. Every individual is all in. Anything it takes to get the goals of the Scrum team accomplished, the commitment, the focus, the respect is all there. You have a coach in the form of a Scrum Master, and you have someone who's responsible for the ultimate success of the work in the product owner. This analogy then helps us to understand when a large organization attempts to do Scrum, what they're really trying to do, if they use the Scrum framework effectively, is to create little mini startups within their organization. This idea is where the concept of no dependencies really becomes important. For organizational agility to be catalyzed, the organization has to work extremely hard to get rid of those dependencies. When you have a small startup of 8 people, that startup has no dependencies. They do everything. I even know people in startups who are their own legal advice. Everything done needs to be done within the sprint, within the team, in order for the organization to develop its organizational agility. As you remove those dependencies, the product owner is able to release done increments at any time. No delays due to bureaucracy, no technical obstacles of dependencies. And again, this is to try and help these big organizations behave like small startups. Executives and managers have a huge role to play in the effectiveness of Scrum in catalyzing organizational agility. Communicating the urgency for change to each other, to all their staff, to everyone on the Scrum teams, but also everyone supporting teams. Leaders also need to adopt an agile way of working themselves. It doesn't have to necessarily be Scrum, but their management work of the organization needs to have the characteristics of rapid feedback cycles, doing work in small batches, avoiding excessive long-term planning, allowing self-organizing, individual acts of leadership. That agile way of working is good because the leaders work more effectively, but also because it helps them to have empathy for what their Scrum teams are going through, which then leads to the next part, empowering Scrum teams. Many people on Scrum teams already have multiple skills. Take a group of 100 people and ask them how many of you have just one skill, no one's going to put up their hand. Everyone has multiple skills. When leaders empower their Scrum teams, they're allowing the individual members of the Scrum team to bring their whole skill set, their whole knowledge base to the problem at hand, regardless of what their previous roles, official responsibilities were. That in turn leads to Scrum teams discovering many organizational obstacles. The leaders need to respond to those Scrum teams by actually changing the organization. This could be restructuring, policy changes, even to the point of going to the board of directors and changing ownership. Changing the organization is the thing that leads ultimately to organizational agility. If you stay in the same structures, if you have the same systems, if you have the same policies, there is no way that you'll attain organizational agility. It's not just people that need to change. As organizational agility takes hold, as Scrum takes hold, there's going to be resistance from people. And leaders need to be able to have effective ways of handling that resistance. To encourage people, to help them cross the knowing-doing gap, Scrum should not result in tons of people quitting or being fired. The leaders need to help everyone engage in the process. One of the best ways to do this is with something referred to as invitational change. I recommend looking that up. Finally, the leaders themselves need to be focused on self-improvement. Leadership can be very reactive, and this is going to be very challenging for creating organizational agility. Actually, what leaders need to be is visionary and creative rather than reactionary. That leads to culture. Leaders change the organizational structures and policies and mindsets in order to support a culture of organizational agility. And that culture has 5 dimensions: focus, avoiding interruptions and multitasking; continuous improvement, avoiding tactical single loop learning or complacency; teamwork, focusing on collaboration at all times, avoiding individual heroism, silos, partisanship, us versus them; a culture of healthy urgency, to do it now, not later; avoid procrastination, seize the opportunity, beat the competition; and finally, vision, to focus on the purpose rather than having tons of individual conflicting priorities and tactics that we're focused on. Establishing this culture is hard work. We do have a tool that you can use called the Real Agility Assessment that helps you know your culture and chart your path culturally to real agility. Feel free to contact us if you're interested in that for your organization.